Hello, Janesville, and welcome back to Park Place Views, the monthly program that aims to keep residents informed by highlighting the people, places, and partners of the City of Janesville. As always, this program is brought to you by the City of Janesville and JATVMedia Services. I'm your host, Nick Faust, and I'm the Communications Specialist in the City Manager's Office. In last month's episode, we were joined by Chief David Moore and Sergeant Benjamin Thompson of the Janesville Police Department. After another year that saw our community's crime rate decrease, and amidst a big summer of community outreach for the department, it was great to learn more about the JPD's efforts in keeping our community safe. If you are interested in viewing that episode or any past episode of Park Place Views, they're all available to watch on demand on the city's website and JTV's YouTube channel. Today I look forward to being joined by City Clerk Treasurer Lori Stotler. With next month's primary election, it's the perfect opportunity to hear more from Lori about the election process and how voters can find all the information they need to participate. We'll also get some additional insight into all the other activities that happen in our Clerk Treasurer's office. But first, a little bit more about Clerk Treasurer Stotler. Lori joined the City of Janesville team in September of 2021. Before this role, she was the Clerk Treasurer in the City of Ballot for 6 years and the Rock County Clerk for 8 years. Lori is a certified public manager, certified election and registration administrator, certified Wisconsin and international municipal clerk, and a certified public funds investment manager. Lori currently serves on committees with both the Wisconsin Clerks Association and Municipal Treasurers Association. And just earlier this year, she was appointed to the U.S. Election Assistant Commission Standards Board. Thanks for joining us today, Lori.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
I certainly know you have a very busy schedule, so I appreciate you taking some time to join us on the program and give our viewers a little bit of insight into what goes on in the CTO.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a total of 10 staff members, if you include me in the Clerk Treasurer's office, and it's a wide variety of jobs. So the Clerk Treasurer is the trustee of all the city funds and the custodian of all the official city records. We perform a plethora of duties related to customer service, and that's really our number one way that we work in our office is just providing outstanding customer service. My people are great at that. Managing city funds, billing accounts payable and accounts receivable. We manage the utility accounts. We prepare the annual tax roll. We issue and maintain city licenses. Of course, election administration,
Yes.
and then records maintenance and overall support of city services.
Yeah, I think one thing folks might not realize is the CTO really touches just every part of the city. And so you have a hand, and you and your team have hands in really keeping everything moving forward. And then when folks come into City Hall, you're the first place they really go. So that customer service piece is so critical in how the city operates.
It is, and no 2 days are ever the same.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. Oh, well, we certainly, with all that scope of work, have a lot to talk about. But first, I thought we might want to bring up the election that is coming up Tuesday, August 9th. That's a partisan primary election where the single winner in each of the 4 parties on the ballot will move on to the November 8th general election. Is that correct?
That is correct. And in the election administration part of our job, we need to try to educate the voters on what these are. So partisan means party. And with a ballot sample you can receive on myvote.gov or on our website or maybe on the screen, we can discuss what a partisan primary is. And the voter needs to be prepared for this one because there is no crossover of parties in this election. So you have to pick a party and stay in that party. And then once you pick the party, you need to vote for the individual candidate that you want to see go to the November ballot. So it's a very confusing ballot for voters, but it's a very important election leading up to November.
Yeah. So it's certainly all about picking the party that you would like to cast the primary ballot in, and then staying to that as you complete the ballot. And well, that might be a little confusing. I know it's also true that polling places have perhaps changed again for this election. For folks at home who might be wondering, why are our wards and polling places changing, and when can they be able to just kind of go to one regular location?
Well, Nick, I wish I could tell you that you could just go to one regular location, but there has been some change in the city, and this is a great platform to be able to talk about that. A recent U.S. Supreme Court decision required the city to update its ward maps and to include new state and federal district boundaries. So you'll be able to see maps on the city's website, and you'll be able to look at those if you go to the myvote.wi.gov. But the result was the renumbering of all the wards and reassigning the polling places that were adopted just in May of this year.
Wow.
So, we use the new polling places and ward maps from redistricting, which is a result of the 2020 census and making sure that there's equal population and representation in the various polling places. We only got one election under our belt before the Supreme Court came and said, no,
Nope.
do it differently.
Change it again.
So in May, the City Council approved a new plan, and they're going to go into effect with this election. So with the state legislature drawing their new districts and Senate districts, Assembly districts, the good news is those districts are now expected to stay the same until 2031.
Good.
So we've got that piece. But all of that said, you asked about regular voting locations. And we have a new process in Janesville, and change can be hard for many, but we're going to do regular elections, which happen in April and November in 10 polling places. So there's a higher turnout. We need to have more polling places open. We need to have more staff available in general elections. There will be 10. Your ward will always stay the same, but your polling place might change because in a February or an August primary like this one, we'll be consolidating to 5 polling places. And we're doing that in being conscious with budgetary reasons, right? We're being asked to do more with less. People are saying, be a good steward of our tax dollars. And so this year might be a little uncomfortable for people, but we'll get there.
Yeah. And if while it might be a change, and as you mentioned, that can be difficult for some folks, at the end of the day, it is simple in that you'll have your regular general spot, and then you may have a primary location, which is a different polling place. And kind of, as the person in the know, being an elections administrator yourself, what would you do then as a voter to prepare for that and to get all the details, so to speak?
Well, it's a good point, Nick, and I might mention that we used to send out postcards to voters who were impacted. We found that it's a very expensive and slightly ineffective to all to send out these postcards so far ahead of elections. So we've used myvote.wi.gov and janesvillewi.gov to be able to get this information out. We'll use radio, newspaper, platforms like this to communicate with people. But the 2 websites that I mentioned, myvotewi.gov and janesvillewi.gov, they hold a lot of information. And to be prepared, the first thing you need to do is, what's my ward and where am I going? And you're going to find that on the city's website. You'll also find that on MyVote. Then once you find your polling place, then look and see what's on the ballot. Make sure that you've not just watched what's on TV or listened to the radio or taken, somebody else's. You can go out and, most candidates have a website. So as for who you vote for, that's up to the individual voter. But to make good decisions, preparation is key on that. And then, this myvotewi.gov, it allows you can check and update your registration. You can request an absentee ballot. You can track your absentee ballot. You can register an address change. There's just so many things. It's such a powerful website that you're going to hear me say myvote.wi.gov a lot today.
Yeah, and I think our city website is certainly a one-stop shop. But if viewers at home haven't been to the state's MyVote website, I can't emphasize enough just how much you can do on that platform. You obviously find your polling location, but preview ballots, as you said. Track absentee requests, make them, and it's really a great resource for Janesville voters to check out. And I think with August being a primary election, November will undoubtedly be a little bit busier because it's a general. And so I thought maybe you could just speak to folks who might be thinking, well, I'm just going to sit the primary out, but it's just a primary.
a lot of people don't vote in primaries. And I'm a very big fan of local elections and primaries for the biggest reason that it eliminates candidates that you're seeing right now.
Yeah.
So the candidates are out right now campaigning on their August ballot to win that election to be able to go to November.
Yeah.
So if you're fond of certain candidates and what they stand for, they aren't going to win unless you go vote for them. And so it is something that if you feel strongly about a candidate, you want to vote in order to move that candidate to November, and then they're going to face other candidates in other parties. So, when we're in the fall, it's all partisan.
Yeah.
So it's party driven, and you want to make sure that you're following all the process. I know we get this thing called, election fatigue, voter fatigue.
Right.
In an even year, we have 4 elections, so it is a lot to ask people to stay plugged in. But, if you sit this one out, somebody else who's going to vote is going to be picking the party person that's going to go to the November ballot.
Yeah.
And so then when you go to the November ballot, you're only going to see one individual in each party on the ballot.
Yeah. Yeah, and just as important as when you're out there voting in the general election is really staying engaged and staying involved in the primary process, which is just as important in democracy and achieving outcomes that individual voters might be interested in. And I also, Lori, I understand there have been some changes around absentee ballots and voting by absentee. When can citizens request and cast their vote by absentee ballot?
So, great question. You'll be able to go to myvote.wi.gov today if you wanted to and request an absentee ballot for the August election. That ballot will get put out in the mail 50 days before a federal election. So, believe it or not, we're going to be sending out almost 4,000 absentee ballots next Thursday already. So, they'll go in the mail on June 23rd. And so people that have that on file, be looking for that. Everybody else can request an absentee ballot right up to the Thursday before the election. And then, of course, we have in-person absentee voting 10 days before the election. So the 2 Tuesdays before, you can come into the clerk's office and you can vote absentee in person.
Yeah.
And I just want to make one thing clear is that people call that early voting, but you need to understand that if you come to vote in the clerk's office, you will be voting an absentee ballot in person. So technically it is early, but a lot of people come not realizing that it's actually an absentee ballot and the ballot's not going straight into any machine.
Right. We keep those, your office does, and they're not fed through anything.
We keep them secured in a vault and tracked by ward and individual and ready to be opened and counted on election day.
Yeah, it's certainly important to understand and important for folks who are thinking about absentee balloting and that whole process to make their plan early and get those details figured out so they can be prepared come August. Lori, another bit of court news. I understand a recent ruling states that only the elector themselves can return their ballot to the clerk, and only a drop box staffed by a clerk would be an acceptable location for that ballot to be deposited. That means that the Wall Street drop box, some folks might be familiar with under this ruling, is off limits. What is the status of all of that going into August?
Well, election law is a little bit like the weather in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Wait 10 minutes and it'll change.
Yes.
But we right now are following the Waukesha judge's ruling that drop boxes, unless it's staffed by a clerk, is not allowed. So we'll have signs on the Wall Street drop box that you can still put your utility bill and everything else that you do for city business, but please bring your absentee ballot into the clerk. And one thing that was a little hard on us in April is that only the elector can return their absentee ballot to the clerk's office. So we had several couples where maybe the spouse isn't as able to get out, or it's difficult to get into City Hall during work hours. They would bring in 2, and I would have to say, well, I can take yours, but you're going to have that other person bring it in or mail it. which when you get to that 7 to 10 days before an election, the post office isn't guaranteeing. So it was a little tough, but if people know in advance that only the elector can return their ballot to the clerk's office, I will have a drop box in my lobby right outside the window where we staff it. So if you just want to jump in and put it in there, that's fine. But the sooner you get your absentee ballot and the sooner it gets back to us, the better off we have to rectify any issues. So, the voters got to sign the envelope and a witness has to sign it and put their full address on. And we try to go through everyone that comes into our office to make sure that they're ready to be counted come 7 a.m. on election day.
Well, that sounds like certainly a lot of work, Lori, going over all those absentee ballots, but it's quite admirable, and I know folks at home really appreciate that because you and your team make every effort to allow folks that want to vote their right to vote, and so thank you for that. And if citizens maybe are interested in voting for the first time in the August election, how can they go about getting registered?
So I'm going to mention myvote.wi.gov again because you can actually register to vote right now. And so as long as you've lived here in Janesville for 28 days before the election, so you could register right now and provide your proof of residence. You could get a paper form mailed to you from our office, so you could give us a call, 608-755-3070, and we would mail you a form. Or you could go to the Election Commission's page. We've got these forms out on our webpage as well. So lots of ways to get registered. You might see the League of Women Voters and other groups out there. The only thing that I would caution you if you're registering out at the grocery store or the library or wherever you are that day, just make sure that your data that you're giving is secure and that it's a group that you trust.
Right. Very important. And speaking and thinking of groups or individuals like that who are particularly civically minded and want to help with that process, I know poll workers, they really took the spotlight as frontline heroes, so to speak, during the pandemic. Could you tell us a little more about what often volunteer poll workers do during the elections?
Poll workers run the election. So it's the greatest job and the hardest job and the longest job, but it's so important, and we will take any poll worker who is willing to come and help us out, whether it be part of a day or all of the day. I'm shocked at the number of people that sign up to work the entire day. It can we're open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then you've got your hour ahead and maybe hour to 2 hour after. So, but we accommodate people in partial shifts too. And what you might be doing is you might greet the people as they're walking in and making sure they're in the right location, helping them make sure they're prepared to check in. Then we have people that are checking in the voters by using our new Badger book system. And so making sure that they're registered in the system and that they get their voter ticket to go to the ballot table. So election workers hand out ballots and direct people to their voting booth. And then we have machine techs now because we've got to have somebody watching the machine the whole time that it's out. And so, it really depends. We also then have chief inspectors who are trained a little bit longer. And they're kind of in charge of making sure that the paperwork is complete and that the reconciliation has taken place. And then they bring everything back to me on election night that needs to be secured for the evening so that I can post the results to the county.
Yeah. I mean, when you say they run the election, those folks really, really make it happen. And I know your office has been actively recruiting more poll workers to be available for future elections. In what ways has the CTO really recruited those folks, and have efforts so far been successful?
We have been successful in that we've been able to staff most of the polling places. And, in this political environment, you might be hesitant to want to step forward. And I can ensure you everything that we do to keep the poll workers safe, to make sure that they're properly trained. This is not you don't need to have a lot of experience. You can come right in and help us get going with a simple 2-hour training. I offer training before every election. But what we've done is we've reached out to the local colleges to see if young people want to get the day off of classes.
Yes.
We go to our local high school. Student poll workers have to be a B or above student, get the permission of their principal and their parents. But then, of course, I'm hitting up the retired area as well.
Yeah.
The retired teachers associations. The different groups that I can get into, and we do it through our website. Where we just drive people straight to our website where they can sign up to be a poll worker. And then finally, I guess I would tell everybody that just like jury duty. You may have a boss that is in very good support of you working on election day as a part of this process in America. So don't feel that just because you have a full-time job that maybe this isn't something that your boss wouldn't support. So, if you have a full-time job, check it out. And like I said, we can do shifts. So maybe you work until 3 in the afternoon. Hey, we can take you from 3:30 till close and put you to work. So
Yeah. There are those options. There's flexibility.
Yep.
And certainly many folks in Janesville
Yeah, you
understand
have to live in
that.
Rock County to be able to work in the city of Janesville. You have to be a U.S. citizen, and in order, if you're not a student worker, then you have to be, of course, 18 and not ineligible to vote. So if you're currently like a felon on serving probation or parole, I wouldn't be able to take you at this time. But there's a lot of ways that we can get people plugged in.
Yeah. Well, and say some of our Rock County viewers at home are watching, and this is maybe piquing their interest to become a poll worker. How can they go about doing so?
Well, they can find information on the city's website. That's the best way to go, is go to janesvillewi.gov. I mean, that's the best way to, if you go to the clerk treasurer's office, we have an election page. It's just a quick link, a quick form, and then we'll send you out the packet. I define in the packet all of the different roles. You can discern whether or not it's right for you.
Yeah.
You can also call me directly. You can call me directly and talk about it if you're not sure. And you can also express your interest right there on myvote.wi.gov.
Ding. Yeah. Well, certainly, Lori, encouraging to hear that folks can come out and be a part of that process. And I'll just one more time remind viewers at home they can always find information about elections on the city's website at www.janesvillewi.gov/vote, and if folks at home haven't made a game of this yet, myvote.wi.gov.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. And Lori, if we start to think past August and past November, your office, the CTO, really turns its attention to property tax billing. What is the timeline for when property taxes are set and then the bills are distributed?
So preparing taxes is a year-long process, and you get to the end of the year and we start to get a lot of calls from people saying, when is my tax bill coming out? I need to deduct it on my taxes. I need to get the payment in before the end of the year. Your home value is set on January 1 of the tax year that you're paying the bill on.
Yeah.
And then throughout January to May, you're really working with the assessor to talk about what the assessed value of your home is.
Right.
During those times, the state is setting their budget, you're going into the budgeting process at the city, the school district and the tech colleges are working on their budgets. They then will approve their budgets in October and November. And once we get all of their information on their budgets and what they need to levy, then I go to my magic little calculators and I start to pull in all of the data. So your home information, all of the budgetary information from all of the entities that'll go on your tax bill, and then we'll set the levy and we'll start processing tax bills. The statute says we have to get tax bills out by December 15th of every year. So that's the target, getting those out. We like to try to get them out like a week earlier and give people a little flex time. But they're not really distributed until December 15th. They're not due. Your first payment is not due till January 31st of the following year. And we do understand that a lot of people like to get those payments made before the end of the year. So if that's the case and you haven't gotten it in the mail, you can certainly call us after December 15th,
Yes.
and we can certainly send that information out to you even by email.
Yeah, yeah. A great process in which you kind of speak to that, but you're pulling all the information together, and then the CTO makes it all happen, gets that all on the bill, and gets it out.
It's a clerk treasurer's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is put out 27,000 bills that aren't right. So
Right.
we take our time, we get a lot of proofing in, and but if anybody has questions on their tax bill, we can certainly help you out.
Help them out, awesome. And your office also does, I think, the billing for the Janesville Municipal Utility Bill, or JMUB, as some folks call it. How does that bill get configured, and is everyone's JMUB the same, or is it like a tax bill? Is it usage based?
It is, just like tax bills are based on the value of your home, your water bill is based on how much water you use.
Yeah.
And so, your neighbor might have a family of 6 and you're just a family of 2. And so you're going to see a big difference in the water usage. But what will be the same is what we call, flat fees.
Mm-hmm.
And so those flat fees work into your fire protection. And when people say, well, don't I pay fire protection on my tax bill?
Yeah.
So that fire protection that a ambulance or a fire truck is going to come in the case of a fire, that does go on your tax bill. But the pipes that go down your street into a fire hydrant, we budget for those through your utility bill. So there's different things on there. Your trash and recycling is on your utility bill, and so that's why we don't call it just a water bill. And then every 468 gallons that you use is considered a unit. So for people that want to say, why does it always say 9 units or 8 units? If you calculate just how much water you're using, you can use the 468 gallons per unit to kind of know what your family's going through.
Yeah, and you touched a bit on the budgeting aspect and some of those other utility features, but I know people might still ask, well, shouldn't the fees on our JMUB, why is that just not collected in the tax bill? Why is that not the case?
Yeah, so there's a difference in what you're being billed for. I feel like I'm making friends everywhere I go. I bill you for this, I bill you for that. But your utility bill is really based on the usage of the water utility. And the water utility is something that has to be set up and approved by the state and is regulated by the Public Service Commission. So the pipes that go up to your home, all the way up and down your street, the stormwater sewers, all of those things are paid for collectively through your utility bill, and it's user-based.
Yes.
So if you use it, you pay for it. Unlike with taxes, it's the value of your home. So it's got a little bit of a different calculation and a different rate. And all of those things, when you pay the value of your home on your taxes, you're paying for things that the school district, the tech college, the city, and the county have budgeted for services outside of, specifically such like the utility.
Yeah, utility functions and services. And I think, well, also as we move maybe to the more practical point of utility billing, the city has begun accepting payments for utility bills online. I know many folks take advantage of that. How many utility customers would you think are choosing that option or choosing auto pay?
Well, right now it's less than 10%. And if you're not sending us a check by mail, which you'd be paying for the stamp and paying for the check, the best way to set up is through auto pay. And I know that because we bill quarterly, that might feel like a long time in between the auto pay, but when you set up with us on the due date every quarter, we will deduct your bill amount. You can always see your bill online and view that. If you go auto pay, we can also email your bill. But less than 10% right now are taking advantage of that. We do have the ability where you can pay online, one time and do it each time. But that has a separate fee to it. So if you want to do it for free, save yourself the stamp. We can get you set up on auto pay really, really easily. And it's not a matter of not being able to see your information.
Right.
If there were a leak that were to be occurred and an alarm, you would still find that out.
Yeah.
It's just we would be taking that that payment automatically with no charge.
Yeah, taking some of the legwork out for folks
Right.
who can rest assured that it's a safe and secure process. And the Clerk Treasurer's Office, Lori, is also testing and preparing to launch a new credit card payment system. Will that change those credit card collection fees or allow for new payment options?
It will. We have a different setup at the city hall. So if you go to city hall to pay your bill, you pay different fees than you would if you pay online with your credit card. And what we're doing is we're coming online with one company, one set of fees. And so obviously you pay by cash or check. There's not going to be any fee. You use a credit card. There's a debate in government that, maybe credit card fees should not be paid for by taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
So we in turn pass that fee on to the user, to the individual who's wanting to use it. So we're moving to a $4.95 fee for up to $500 on both the in-person and the website. So it should eliminate a lot of confusion on why do I got to pay this if I come here, or I pay this if I do it online.
Right.
So you should see that about mid-July, late July.
Okay.
So
Folks can expect to see that change and some uniformity in the
uniformity,
process.
know what to expect, yeah.
Yeah, well, and thinking of some uniform tasks, I would say, so to speak, I know your office also oversees licensing for a variety of purposes. I mean, we talk business licenses, pet licenses, alcohol licenses, etc. What is the incentive for folks, residents, businesses to obtain those licenses? Or perhaps I should ask, what is the penalty if they choose not to obtain them?
Well, the incentive is to not want to deal with the penalty.
Yes.
So it's a whole lot easier to pay $25 to license your animal than it is to pay I think it's upwards of $250 for an animal at large. And so there's a lot of reasons to license your animal. There's a lot of reasons to comply with city government. And the biggest reason or incentive is to avoid the citations that come with not being compliant. And licensing is not a matter of, oh, you just want to get more money for this and you just want to get more money from the taxpayers. Having your animal license does a lot for the community.
Yeah.
Part of that is it makes sure that your animals are properly vaccinated against rabies, so that when you are out on a walk with Fido, if he bites someone, we can prove that rabies. If the dog gets off the leash and runs away and has that collar number on, our CSOs, our animal people, can call the clerk's office and say, hey, where does this dog with license number 761 live? So a lot of people use the chips inside the dog, and so it's just another layer of being able to return your pet safely home when they're wearing that. And it provides a good health environment for animals in our community. As businesses go to get licenses, it's important that people understand that the fees that they pay to be licensed are passed on through the regulation and compliance piece. So you're paying, when we determine what the fees are for that, we're actually looking at how much does it cost to process the license? How much does it cost to keep it compliant? So we send an officer into a restaurant or a bar to do a compliance check to make sure that, only people of age are being served, and that, only licensed people and educated people are serving things like alcohol, that they're not being overserved, so we're not putting people who have drank too much on the road. There's a lot of reasons why we license, and the cost of the license is basically to cover the cost of keeping them compliant, and it's just really a part of being in the community and being in business.
Yeah, it's those fees certainly not arbitrary in how they're set, and
nor are they punitive. We don't ever want any of our fees to be punitive except for our late fees.
Right.
And so our late fees may appear to be a little bit punitive because we want to make sure that you're meeting deadlines so that we can complete our processes too.
That would be the stick, as we'd say. But matter of public health, matter of community safety, very important. And I know in my role, I get this question constantly. I could only imagine for you how frequently you're asked this, but why does the city require that those dog and cat owners license their pets and pay that fee? Does the city keep then that money?
I'd love to tell this story, Nick, because so many people don't understand where that money goes. And so when you pay the license fee, so you're going to pay neutered and unneutered, you're either going to have a dog that's altered or not altered, right? A cat that's altered or not altered. So that's what your fee is based on. And then if we're going to mail you the license, we just want to collect the postage fee back. Every month then we do a reconciliation of how many licenses did we sell and how much money did we collect. And we collect a very small portion of that. The bulk of that money goes over to the county treasurer. And under state statute, chapter 174, the county is required to establish a dog fund. And so this dog fund, all 28 municipalities, depending on how many licenses they sell, pay into this dog fund. And the dog fund then pays for claims for the naughty people who haven't had their animals licensed. You might remember there were a couple of, several years ago, there were a couple of horses that were injured and had to be put down because of some serious dog bites.
Yes.
And the claims to that were paid out of the dog fund. And so whenever somebody is, walking down the street and they're bit and, they can file a claim with the county to pay those. Obviously, not just anybody. There has to be, some responsibility taken. But it's meant to secure the community against, costly things that are out of your control. At the end of the year, if there's money left in there, and there's many years where there's no money left in there, but they divide it out by the balance by 28. So maybe, the smaller towns might benefit, but Janesville's certainly not going to benefit because we put, a greater portion of license money into the fund than we get back. But, it's a very important fund to protect people against, bites that can cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we do require that your cat and dog license their pets. And the Chapter 174 states, fascinating reading.
Yeah, a real page turner.
A real page turner, yeah. But it explains all of that, and it's fun to tell the public that, hey, we don't just put that money into our general fund to pay for something else. So, and then we have people that have to go out mostly from our police department, right, and collect animals at large and take them down to the Humane Society.
Yeah, so it keeps, again, community, two-legged and four-legged, safe and healthy, and so we appreciate that. And Laura, I think we're just about out of time, but we only covered really, I think, a portion of the everyday in your office during the episode. If viewers at home would like to get more information, how can they get in touch with your office?
Well, you can certainly call our general line, 608-755-3070. And we can vet your questions out. We can't always answer the question that you're calling about, but we can generally find the person who has the answer to that and get you to them. You can certainly go out onto the website and get a lot of answers there. It's got a lot of great information. You can come on down and see us. We're open Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30. And you can come on down and there's always somebody at the front desk. We don't want the public not having the facts. So we like to consider ourselves an office that has outstanding customer service and likes to be able to fill in the gaps for people. So by all means, go online, call us, stop in.
Yeah.
We're pretty available.
We're very available, and if folks want to know, you can make that happen, and we certainly appreciate that. And as we wrap up, Lori, I thought maybe I'd give you a chance to give any last thoughts that maybe you want to share with folks at home. Maybe plug myvote.wi.gov one more time to check it out.
Oh, you beat me to it. It really is. Voting is a right that we have. I'm very passionate about voting, so I really hope that people don't sit elections out and don't feel like they're not qualified to go poll workers, if you're retired and you have a few hours that you want to, plug in, please don't be intimidated. We will make sure I will hold your hand until you feel right. I will partner you with people that have experience. We really want to make sure we have enough volunteers going into the fall. November, it takes upwards of 250 people to pull off a election. And I will tell every voter, I know the political environment is a little rough right now. We're all really passionate about our views and where we stand, but be nice to those people when you go to vote.
Yes.
If you're in the wrong place, they will direct you to the right place. It's not their fault, it's mine. If you're turned away for any reason at all, or your ballot, they're telling you can't take it, before you give up on it, please call our office.
Yes.
So, my job is to make sure that your vote gets counted as long as we've followed the process. So get out and vote, and I'll see you around town.
We'll see you around town. Well, thank you for joining us today, Lori. I appreciate you taking some time to come visit the program. And as we just heard, you and your team really carry out so many of the essential functions that keep our city moving forward. So I know the community is grateful to have such a skilled and knowledgeable professional serving as our city clerk. So thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Wonderful. And I want to thank you, our viewers and residents, for tuning in today and for all you do to help make Janesville a community of choice to realize life's opportunities. I also want to invite you to stay connected with the city by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, signing up for emergency notifications from the JPD via the Nixle app, and receiving our weekly city press releases by visiting www.janesvillewi.gov/email lists. I also want to encourage you to tune into the program next month when I sit down with the city's Economic Development Director, Jimsy Coborn. As the city prepares to continue all the momentum we're seeing in and around town, it'll be fantastic to have Director Coborn on the program to fill us in on that process. For Park Place Views in the city of Janesville, I'm Nick Faust. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next month.